Hello and a very good evening. You're watching the news at 6 on Rajya Sabha television with me, Frank Pereira. Here are the headlines. Floods leave 18 people dead in Bihar and Assam even as a cloudburst kills 6 in Uttarakhand. Rescue operations continue in Himachal Pradesh's Mandi region where 46 people were killed in a landslide. Uttar Pradesh government assures swift and strict action on Gorakhpur child deaths. National Human Rights Commission seeks report. Supreme Court asks petitioner to approach Allahabad High Court on the matter. Wholesale and retail price indices increased. WPI rises to 1.88% in July compared to 0.9% in June. Tomatoes lead the hike in vegetable prices. And Team India completes its first ever clean sweep away from home, wins the third test by an innings and 171 runs after bowling out Sri Lanka for 181 in the second innings at Palkale. Well, as the Yogi Adityanath government promises exemplary action against those responsible for the Gorakhpur tragedy, the National Human Rights Commission has sent a notice to the UP government seeking a report. The Supreme Court has also refused to take suo motu cognizance of the matter, saying that the petitioner should approach the Allahabad High Court. The opposition meanwhile continues to corner the Uttar Pradesh government. Here's a detailed report.
Scores of families mourning their children who died at Gorakhpur's BRD Medical College over the last 1 week, many suffocating to death for want of oxygen. The Supreme Court, however, refused to take suo motu cognizance of the incident. The court observed that the authorities were handling the situation and asked the petitioner to approach the Allahabad High Court. The National Human Rights Commission also sent a notice to the Uttar Pradesh government over the deaths, seeking a report within 4 weeks. The government has assured swift and strict action in the matter.
मैं समझता हूं सरकार को अवसर देना चाहिए. दोषी किसी भी कीमत पर बख्शे नहीं जाएंगे और भविष्य में इस प्रकार की घटनाएं न होने पाए इसके भी प्रबंध किए जा रहे हैं. एक पीड़ाजनक और दुखद यह पूरा प्रकरण रहा है.
The NHRC notice comes a day after the Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath and Union Health Minister JP Nadda visited the medical college. The Chief Minister had warned of exemplary punishment for those responsible for the horrific tragedy.
केवल गोरखपुर ही नहीं, उत्तर प्रदेश के अंदर अगर किसी की लापरवाही से अगर कहीं पर जनहानि होगी तो फिर सरकार उसको बख्शेगी नहीं. बहुत सख्ती के साथ ऐसे तत्वों से निपटने का कार्य करेगी, बहुत सख्त कार्रवाई करेगी.
A high-powered has been formed under the State Chief Secretary to probe the reason for the deaths. The state government has maintained that the deaths were due to encephalitis and not lack of oxygen, although it did admit that there is a shortage in oxygen supply. The UP government suspended the principal of the Medical College Rajiv Mishra for laxity. The nodal officer for the pediatric department at the hospital, Dr. Kafil Khan, was also divested of the charge. Meanwhile, politics is heating up over the issue, with the opposition cornering the UP government.
चीफ मिनिस्टर होने के बाद उनका चौथा दौरा उन्होंने बताया कि मेरा यहाँ इस हॉस्पिटल में है. 4 दौरे होने के बावजूद अगर एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन इतना लापरवाह है तो फिर उत्तर प्रदेश का पूरा एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन कैसे लापरवाह नहीं होगा. इससे साफ जाहिर होता है कि उनके सरकार चलाने में कोई इंटरेस्टेड नहीं है और एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन उनकी बात सुनता नहीं है.
क्या सरकार इस बात की गारंटी दे सकती है कि शेष कार्यकाल में कोई इस प्रकार की घटनाएं अन्य प्रदेश के मेडिकल कॉलेजेस में और खास तौर पे मुख्यमंत्री के जिले में नहीं होंगी? इस बात की जानकारी और आश्वासन प्रदेश सरकार को देना चाहिए.
The centre has sanctioned 85 crore rupees to set up a regional medical research centre in Gorakhpur. A team of specialists from New Delhi are also camping in the town to strengthen the treatment protocol and ascertain the cause of death of so many children. No case has been registered as the police say there is no formal complaint. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, the flood situation in Assam and Bihar has worsened due to incessant rains, with lakhs of people being affected in both states. The NDRF and the army have been pressed into service to evacuate those stranded. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has also spoken to the chief ministers of both states, assuring all possible support from the centre to mitigate the situation. Here's a report.
Unprecedented heavy rains have unleashed floods, wreaking havoc in Bihar and Assam. Nearly 2 million people have been affected by the floods in Bihar alone, prompting Chief Minister Nitish Kumar to seek the help of the Indian Air Force to carry out relief and rescue operations in the state. This in addition to several army and NDRF teams working round the clock to evacuate those stranded.
हमने यही निर्देश दिया है कि कल सभी जिलाधिकारियों को भी एरियल सर्वे कराकर पूरी स्थिति को उन्हें दिखा देना चाहिए। सब तरह की सहायता करेंगे और जो भी नुकसान हुआ है उसको फिर से रिस्टोर करने की भी सड़कों या जो भी इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर उसके लिए भी कोशिश करेंगे।
North and northeast Bihar are the worst affected as all major rivers Kosi, Buri Gandak, Kamla Balan, Bagmati and Mahananda are flowing much above the danger mark. Hundreds of villages have been submerged and thousands rendered homeless in Purnia, Katihar, Araria, Supol, Saharsa, Champaran, Darbhanga and Madhubani districts. With the Met Department predicting more rains in the coming days, the state has been put on red alert.
जो बाढ़ की स्थिति है वो सबसे ज्यादा प्रभावित जो इलाके हैं वो हैं किशनगंज, अररिया, पूर्णिया और अब कटिहार। कटिहार के कुछ भाग जो हैं ये जो कदवा, आजमनगर ये बेल्ट है ये काफी प्रभावित है और इस तरफ के नरकटियागंज के जो इलाके हैं और मोतिहारी में ढाका और उसके आसपास के जो इलाके हैं ये मुख्य रूप से प्रभावित हैं। जिस प्रकार की बारिश हुई है वो अप्रत्याशित है और इसलिए अभी हमारी प्राथमिकता इवैक्यूएशन है।
In Assam, at least 15 people have died in the last 4 days due to floods. The second wave of deluge within a month has affected over 22 lakh people in 21 districts of the state. Kokrajhar, Barpeta, Lakhimpur, Dhubri and Dibrugarh are the worst hit areas. The Brahmaputra continues to flow above the danger level across several districts.
बाढ़ परिस्थिति के वजह से कटाव की वजह से लोगों को भुगतना पड़ रहा है और असम सरकार की तरफ से लोगों को मदद करने के लिए हर कदम उठाया गया है और भारत सरकार की तरफ से भी हमें इस विषय पर मदद मिल रहा है।
The fresh bout of floods has submerged nearly 85% of the area in Kaziranga National Park. Rail and road connectivity from Bihar to the northeastern states has been completely disrupted.
किशनगंज रेलवे स्टेशन पे बाढ़ का पानी जो आया है वो पानी में हम लोग का ट्रैक पानी का अंदर चला गया, इसलिए हम लोग का ट्रेन सर्विस वहाँ पे सस्पेंडेड है। आप लोग तो सब आदमी जानते हैं जो किशनगंज बोटलनेक स्टेशन है एनएफ रेलवे का अंदर पड़ते हैं वो किशनगंज रेलवे स्टेशन। वहाँ से जो लॉन्ग डिस्टेंस ट्रेन नॉर्थ ईस्ट से जो ट्रेन बाहर जाती है वो सब ट्रेन सब किशनगंज होके चलती है, लेकिन जो किशनगंज स्टेशन पानी का अंदर में है तो अब कैसे ट्रेन चलेगा।
Taking stock of the grim situation both in Assam and Bihar, Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke to the chief ministers of the two states, assuring them of all possible help and support from the centre. The Prime Minister added that the centre is closely and constantly monitoring the situation in both states. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, rain lashed Uttarakhand where at least 6 people were killed and an army jawan went missing after 2 separate cloudbursts in Dharchula subdivision of Pithoragarh district. The first incident occurred in Mangtinalla near Thawagat when a local rivulet overflowed due to heavy rains and hit some shops and an army camp. Rescue teams recovered 2 bodies from the spot while a jawan from the camp is missing. The second cloudburst occurred at Malpa where an overflowing local rivulet swept away the victims. Disaster mitigation teams have been sent and recovered bodies from there. Meanwhile, at least 46 people were killed by a massive landslide that struck 2 buses in Mandi district of Himachal Pradesh on Sunday. The landslide buried 2 Himachal Pradesh Roadways buses on the Mandi-Pathankot National Highway. One of the buses was Manali bound with 47 passengers on board. The other bus was an AC coach headed for Katra from Manali with 8 passengers, of whom 3 were killed. The other 5 were admitted to the zonal hospital in Mandi. Rescue operations resumed early in the morning today to recover the bodies. A village near the highway was declared unsafe and residents were asked to shift for places. The Himachal Pradesh Road Transport Corporation suspended night services on 65 landslide-prone roads in the Shimla district as a precaution. Chief Minister Veerbhadra Singh visited the spot on Sunday. Well, wholesale price index-based inflation increased to 1.88% in July compared to 0.90% in June as prices of some commodities increased in the first month of GST rollout. Tomatoes led the hike in vegetable prices. Retail inflation also rose to 2.36% in July from 1.46% in June.
Wholesale price inflation picked up in July after easing for 4 straight months. The wholesale price index rose 1.88% in July from a year earlier, compared with an increase of 0.63% in July 2016 and 0.9% in June. Supplies were hit due to heavy rains that led to an increase in vegetable and fruits inflation. Food inflation accelerated by 2.15% in the month of July, compared to 3.4% disinflation in June. Vegetable prices increased to 21.95% in July, compared to a disinflation of 21.16% in the previous month. Tomato prices jumped 209% on a month-on-month basis, contributed the most to this increase. Mineral inflation spiked to 24.84% in July, compared to 2.02% downfall in June. However, manufactured products saw slight fall inflation at 2.18% in July, compared to 2.27% in June. Disinflationary pressures allowed the RBI to cut its main policy rate earlier this month by 25 basis points to 6%, the lowest since November 2010. However, the RBI retained its neutral stance and warned inflation could pick up again. It also said that prices of LPG and kerosene are set to rise with a calibrated reduction in subsidy and cautioned that the implementation of farm loan waivers by states may result in possible fiscal slippages. Kriti Mishra, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, another news now. India and Turkmenistan today decided to speed up efforts to complete the India-Tapi gas pipeline project that runs through India, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan and Pakistan. External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj met Turkmenistan Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs Rashid O. Meradov for discussions on the project. While both jointly chaired the Turkmenistan-India Intergovernmental Commission on Trade, Economic, Scientific and Technological Cooperation, a protocol agreement was signed in presence of both ministers. Both countries will also collaborate in defense training and preparedness. Meradov later met Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu and exchanged views on bilateral cooperation and global issues. This was the first meeting of the newly elected Vice President of India in this position with a foreign dignitary. Meradov also met Finance and Defence Minister Arun Jaitley. Turkmenistan is strategically located in Central Asia and it is important for India. Well, it's time for a short break now, but news and updates will continue on the other side. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
Art arisen from a multi-hued cultural canvas. Tradition and cultural fervour dating back centuries. And encircling them all, there's a magic that awes. Embrace your nation's brilliant human warmth. Watch Colours of India, Sundays at 9:30 p.m. on Rajya Sabha television.
Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha television. Well, at least 27 people have died after flash floods triggered by incessant rainfall hit Bangladesh. Nearly 6 lakh others are marooned in nearly 24 districts. The flow of water from upstream regions together with monsoon rains has flooded as many as 20 of the country's 64 districts. Much of those affected have been forced to take refuge in makeshift shelters as the country witnesses the second round of floods since June. There are fears that the deluge could engulf vast part of the riverine nation in the coming weeks, causing prolonged flooding. The Flood Forecasting and Warning Center says water levels in 3 out of the 4 river basins were rising simultaneously. Well, it's some more international news now. China will stop importing iron ore and seafood imports from North Korea starting Tuesday as it implements new UN sanctions. China had pledged to fully enforce the latest sanctions following pressure from the United States to do more to compel North Korea to drop its nuclear weapons program. Meanwhile, the chairman of the US Joint Chiefs of Staff, Joseph Dunford, met South Korean President Moon Jae-in. The two discussed the rise in tensions on the Korean peninsula ahead of the US-South Korean joint military drills scheduled for later this month. Meanwhile, on the other hand, US and Japanese troops held joint live-fire drills on the northern Japanese island of Hokkaido. This is part of regularly conducted exercises to promote cooperation between the allies. Even though the drills are not related to the latest tension on the Korean peninsula, they come at a time when governors of some Japanese prefectures have urged the central government to provide prompt information and enhance air defense readiness. Well, staying on with international news now, at least 18 people have died and 8 injured after an attack on a restaurant in Burkina Faso's capital, Ouagadougou, late on Sunday. Communications Minister Remy Danjinu confirmed it during a news conference. He further said that gunmen attacked the Aziz Istanbul restaurant and security forces were deployed to try to end the attack. Meanwhile, there was no immediate claim of responsibility. Earlier last year, some terrorists reportedly killed 30 people when they launched an overnight assault on a hotel in the city, which had been popular with UN staff and foreigners.
Nous, on a fait un dommage. Maintenant, on sortait pour attendre le chauffeur pour qu'il vienne nous chercher. Maintenant, quand on s'est sur la télé, on a entendu les coups là. Et puis, moi, je n'ai plus rien vu. Moi, je n'ai rien vu.
Au début, nous avons pensé à un braquage. Mais il va sans dire que c'est au-delà de cela. Ceux qui sont sortis, qui nous donnaient les informations selon lesquelles on les a dépouillés et puis les faire sortir, par après, nous, on a vu les informations, on a vu ce qui se passe sur le terrain. Et c'est vraiment plus grave que cela, puisqu'il y a toujours des clients qui sont restés dans le restaurant avec ces bandits qui sont venus, on ne sait d'où. Et on attend de voir la riposte, qu'est-ce que ça va donner.
Well, here's a roundup now of the other international news and global buzz. Well, firefighters of the Spanish Military Emergency Unit joined Portuguese counterparts after it requested assistance from Europe as a precautionary measure to fight forest fires. More than 3,000 firemen are struggling to control the blaze across Portugal. According to reports, 268 fires broke out that burnt 140,000 hectares of forest in Portugal. Kenyan police killed at least 11 people in a crackdown on protests that erupted in slums surrounding the capital. Deadly clashes between police and civilians in Nairobi's opposition stronghold were ignited after Kenya President Uhuru Kenyatta won. His win was confirmed. Opposition leader Raila Odinga claimed the Election Commission's computer system was hacked and called for a strike to support his claim to the presidency. Odinga even accused the ruling party of spilling the blood of innocent people. Syrian army forces control of the major town in Homs province, which was held by Islamic State. IS militants were killed and their weapons were destroyed in the town of Al-Sukhna. The town is located 50 kilometers from the provincial boundary of Deir al-Zor province, which is Islamic State's last major foothold for the Syrian government. Well, shifting focus to some sports news now, where India beat Sri Lanka by an innings and 171 runs inside 3 days in the third and final test to complete a 3-0 series whitewash. The Sri Lankan men were all out for 181 in their second innings after being made to follow on. Ravichandran Ashwin took 4 wickets while Mohammad Shami finished with figures of 3 for 32. Earlier, the hosts were bundled out for 135 on Sunday after India posted 487 in their first innings. Niroshan Dikwala was the highest run scorer from the Lankan side with a score of 41 runs and was one of 3 Lankan batsmen to pass 16. India won the first test in Galle by 304 runs and the second in Colombo by an innings and 53 runs, which was their first victory by an innings in Sri Lanka.
Good day, good win for us. Very happy with the overall performance. So always feels nice to have convincing victories, and today again we were able to finish off the game. So pretty good day for us.
Well, let's now bring you up to date with some other sports news in Sportsbeat. Singles tennis player Yuki Bambri returned to the Indian Davis Cup team along with Saket Mainini. Ramkumar Ramanathan and Rohan Bopanna also made it to the squad, captained by Mahesh Bhupati. Leander Paes was dropped from the tie against Canada next month. Paes was included in the 6-man squad for the previous tie against Uzbekistan in Bengaluru in April this year, but was left out of the final 4 by new captain Mahesh Bhupati. On the concluding day of the 7th Asian Shotgun Championship in Astana, Indian duo of Mairaj Ahmed Khan and Rashmi Rathod bagged a gold medal in the skeet mixed team event. The duo beat Chinese pair of Liu Jingqi and Gao Jianmai with a score of 28-27. Host Kazakhstan settled for a bronze. India finished the championship with 8 medals. Ukrainian Elena Svitolina beat Dane Caroline Wozniacki 6-4, 6-0 in the Rogers Cup to capture her tour-leading 5th title of the season. 5th-seeded Svitolina's run to the final included victories over Wimbledon champion Garbine Muguruza and defending champion Simona Halep. In another match, 4th-seeded Alexander Zverev beat Roger Federer 6-3, 6-4 in the finals in Montreal to join the Swiss right-hander as the most trophy-laden player on the ATP Tour this year with 5 titles. Well, that's it on this newscast. Have a good evening.